First to Fiona Whelan in Canberra, where the tensions between China and Australia are set to escalate as Canberra rallies international support for an independent review into the coronavirus. And Fiona, how do we expect this to play out?
Well, Ali, things are already very rocky between Australia and China, and yes, this certainly has the potential to escalate the situation further. So 62 nations are now calling for an independent review into the origins of coronavirus. So they've co-signed a motion which will be debated at the World Health Assembly tomorrow. Now, Australia was the first nation to call for this review, and Beijing described that as a political attack. And since then, it started playing hardball with us over trade. It's threatening to slap import taxes on Australian barley, as well as banning some of our beef. Whether it takes further action on more products, well, that could depend on the outcome of the vote tomorrow. Ali?
OK, thanks, Fee.
McDonald's is promising to deep clean 12 stores in Melbourne as a coronavirus scare triggers a major shutdown. Today, reporter Christina Hearn is at Laverton North in the city's west. Chris, good morning to you. A delivery driver has tested positive.
Yeah, that's right, Carl. This truck driver was infected with COVID-19 when he has made deliveries to 12 McDonald's across Melbourne, most of them located in the city's northwest. As a result, all 12 stores have been shut for deep cleaning, and the workers that came in contact with this delivery driver have been told to self-isolate for 14 days and undergo a COVID-19 test. Now, that truck driver, it has been identified, is a work contact of the already announced COVID-19 case at the Craigieburn McDonald's. This outbreak all began at the Fawkner McDonald's. The cluster has now risen to 10. As for Cedar Meats, the source of Victoria's biggest coronavirus outbreak, it is partially reopening this morning. Carl?
The McDonald's CEO coming up in a couple of minutes. Thank you, Chris.
An emergency team of nurses are heading from Brisbane to an aged care home in Rockhampton, where residents are in lockdown after a worker contracted COVID-19. Nine's Adam Hegarty is at North Rockhampton Nursing Home. And Adam, how will the nurses be helping?
Well, Ali, they'll be able to help staffing shortages here as well, but put simply, this is a wider health system really struggling to cope with this response. 40 of the regular nurses here, they've been sent off into self-quarantine because they came into close contact with the nurse in question. 37 still waiting for their test results. There's staffing concerns also at a nearby COVID-19 testing station set up yesterday in response to this, concerns about a wider spread in the community. As for the nurse, she's obviously also in quarantine, but she's also been suspended.
OK, thanks for that update, Adam.
As Australia emerges from lockdown, there are concerns we're driving straight into a serious gridlock problem on our roads. Today, Sydney reporter Gabrielle Boyle has more on this. And Gabby, Sydney-siders are especially concerned, of course. How is the government planning to respond?
Absolutely, Alex. Squishing in like sardines on our buses and trains simply won't be allowed anymore. We'll have to practice our social distance as we get to and from work, and that presents a whole range of problems. How do we get out and about but maintain our social distance when we're doing our everyday business? Well, the New South Wales State Government has a number of plans that they're looking at. Among them, pop-up car parks, so additional car parks in our city to cope with people choosing to drive to work and school. They're also looking at additional cycle lanes and more paths so that people can use the fresh air to get out and about when they're doing their everyday business. They're also considering encouraging businesses to do staggered start times so we're not all leaving and coming home at the same time. We're expecting to hear from Gladys Berejiklian and her Transport Minister Andrew Constance on the show in about an hour's time. Alex?
Looking forward to it. Gabby, thank you.
Positive signs in the road back to normal, with Queensland and New South Wales marking their first weekend of relaxed restrictions with a glowing scorecard. Queensland Police issuing only 19 fines across the whole weekend as limits were lifted on cafes and restaurants.
There still are a few out there that aren't paying attention to the warnings we're giving, but overall the behaviour of our community was excellent.
Meantime, in New South Wales, only one penalty was handed out over the whole weekend.
Well, here's the man with the plan to get Victoria reopened and recovering from COVID-19. And Premier Daniel Andrews joins me now from Melbourne. A very good morning to you, Premier.
Good morning.
So you're going to start easing restrictions on cafes, restaurants and pubs from June 1. I mean, you can almost feel that collective sigh of relief, but why are you behind the rest of the country?
Well, look, every state needs to move at its own pace, and that was a really important decision of National Cabinet. We're out there doing a lot of testing. For instance, over the weekend, we've done the best part of 30,000 tests. We're going to continue to test large numbers of people, find out how much virus is in the community, and then open in a steady, deliberate way, a safe way. We want to do this once. We don't want a situation where we open up too much too quickly and then only have to go back into a tougher lockdown because we lose control of this virus. It spreads so rapidly. Your news bulletin just then talks about one driver who had no symptoms, and now we've got 12 restaurants closed. This is dynamic, and you just got to do it smart. And I know it's frustrating. Everyone would like all the rules to go yesterday, but that would not be the responsible thing to do. We've got to do this in a safe and steady way, and that's exactly what the weekend's announcements were all about. Pubs, restaurants, cafes, in a gradual, steady way. But yes, very welcome news for a lot of people.
What about gyms and playgrounds?
We've got school going back on the 26th. That's the prep, grade 1, grade 2, and then the balance of students will go back on the 9th. So we'll have more to say about playgrounds, more to say about some of that outdoor activity. As far as gyms as well as beauty therapy, those very close contact, very much indoor activity, that's very challenging. And we've just got to, again, keep doing the testing, keep finding out how much virus is out there in the Victorian community, and then make announcements when it's the right time. I know it's very frustrating. That's why JobKeeper, for instance, the federal government's program, and lots of other business support that our government's providing is so important to get people through to the other side. We will have these rules relaxed over time. We just have to do it in a very cautious way because you only get one chance to take these first steps properly. The easy thing to do is to rush to reopen everything. Other countries in the world show us that that doesn't work. It just means you have to go into an even harder lockdown, and the cost of that, obviously, that's the worst outcome possible.
So no set date yet for gyms and playgrounds?
I can't make any announcements about gyms, and the only announcements we made, they're pretty significant, was of course that pathway back for cafes, restaurants and pubs, the dining component of the pubs, and that's been welcomed by that industry. Now we've got to work really hard to make sure we've got all the rules in place, staff are trained up, but again, it's back onto Victorians to do the right thing, to follow those rules, to keep doing the amazing job that they've been doing. That's what's delivered these numbers that are the envy of the world, numbers that we can't fritter away. We have to be cautious about this, and I think Victorians are with us on that front.
Cedar Meats reopens today. I mean, it was still being linked to new cases over the weekend. Are you confident it's safe? Is there any fears that this is coming too soon?
The public health team are very confident that I think there's about 20 staff going back in. They're working in one particular part of that business, in the cold storage part of that business. That's a significant outbreak, but one, as the Chief Health Officer, Brendan Murphy's made clear, has been handled very well by the public health team. We're going to see more of these outbreaks. The Prime Minister's made that point, I've made that point. That's going to be part of this virus as it presents in the weeks and months to come. That's why we've all boosted our teams right across the country to be able to track, trace and respond really quickly to outbreaks. They are going to be a feature of the weeks and months to come, but a big public health team, lots and lots of those coronavirus detectives, very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example of what you're talking about there is Macca's. As we've seen, they've closed 12 stores. Given that this delivery driver showed no symptoms, I mean, we have no idea just how many people he's actually come into contact with. How concerned are you?
Oh, look, any outbreak, particularly where it comes from someone who had no symptoms at all, is obviously a really big concern. It just makes the point, or makes 2 points really. One, this spreads really fast, and you can be feeling perfectly fine, have no symptoms, be not unwell in any way, doing the right thing. If you were a crook, you wouldn't go to work. This person didn't feel unwell, so that's the first point. It's rapidly moving. It gets away from you quickly. But the second point is that's why testing is so important. We are heading towards about 250,000 tests in the last 3 weeks. That is a massive effort, and I want to thank Victorians for coming forward and getting tested, but that gives us the real sense of how much virus is out there in the community. Not guesswork, but real data that allows us to take these slow, safe, cautious steps, do it once and do it right. Don't have a situation like other countries have where you open too much too soon, you get outbreaks, you get this thing gets away from you, and then you've got to go into an even harder lockdown. That's a very, very bad outcome.
Now, New South Wales is keen to see state borders reopen. Your thoughts, just quickly?
Oh, look, I think each state has to make its own judgments. Our borders are open, New South Wales borders are open, other states have got a different position. They'll have to justify that to their local communities, but perhaps there's some good reasons, particularly the Northern Territory, WA, some of the South Australian changes. If you've got remote Aboriginal communities, the last place you want this virus to get into is those sort of communities where it would be a devastating outcome. We'll get all our borders open at some point. It's just a matter of taking time to do it right.
And the AFL is back. You happy it's safe?
Yeah, I am. There's been a lot of work going, particularly with the Chief Health Officer here in Victoria, as well as at a national level. Footy's a big part of everyone's life. It's a big part of Victorians' spirit and our sort of the rhythm of the week and a sense of normality. Welcome news, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, get them back, we all say. Thanks, Premier, for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, Alex has the rest of the day's news.
Thank you, Ali. Good morning. Updating our breaking news now, and a man has been charged over the alleged murder of his parents at their home in Queensland. Jessica Millward is in Joiner, north of Brisbane. And Jess, where was he tracked down?
Alex, he was arrested on the side of the M1 at Berowra in Sydney. The 31-year-old taken into custody and in the past hour has been charged with 2 counts of murder. He was arrested at 6:30 p.m. last night, just 4 hours after the bodies of his parents, Loris and Frank Puglia, were found here at the bed and breakfast that they managed in Joiner. A relative made that awful discovery. Their son is going to appear before the Parramatta local court later today. Queensland Police will apply for an extradition. Alex.
Jess Millward, thank you for that update. AFL star and Geelong midfielder Jack Stephen is in hospital in Melbourne this morning as mystery mounts over how he suffered a stab wound to the chest. Victoria Police are investigating, but the 30-year-old is yet to explain the events that led up to his admission to hospital. It's believed his injury is not life-threatening. And a rock climber is this morning, right now, waiting to be rescued after spending a cold 14 hours stranded halfway down a 150-metre cliff face in the New South Wales Blue Mountains. It's believed he has fractured his arm after falling whilst climbing in a group of 3. We'll keep you up to date on that story,
It's
folks.
been terrible, isn't it? They haven't been able to get in there. At 4 p.m. yesterday, it all happened. There's been rain. It's been cold. We've got broken limbs. The rescuer there on the side of the mountain there hasn't got a shirt on.
No.
I mean, it's just what they're doing there and how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
Just extraordinary. So that is a big rescue underway. And as Alex says, we'll bring you the latest very soon.